My loft was a mess. I've been living in my home for almost 5 years now, and in that time I've fitted a lot of smart tech. And I've also kept pretty much every single bit of packaging from all of that tech, and basically everything else that I've bought in that time. And it all ended up in my loft, or attic, for future James to deal with. And in the last week or so, future James finally showed up. So my wife and I dove into sorting through the years of stuff that we'd been hoarding. And with that done, my next task was to ensure that it didn't happen again, by using a bit of DIY and a few smart tricks. So let's go through what I've done and see if you can spot anything fun along the way. Hi, I'm James, and I've been building out my smart home for years, with products from just about every manufacturer out there, figuring out what works and what doesn't. My first thing to do was to figure out how it got like this. Obviously I kept boxes that I should have just thrown in the recycling long ago, but besides that there was no organisation, so everything just got thrown on top of everything else. And a frankly scary amount of stuff got ruined because it wasn't properly protected from the conditions up there. So I figured I had 3 areas to tackle. Number 1 was to maintain a better climate. Get the air circulating better and control the humidity to reduce the chances of mould. Number 2 is to get organised. Make sure that everything's boxed up so that it's protected and has its own place. And finally, number 3 is to make it easier to find things. Once everything has its place, make it easy to find what you're looking for after years may have passed. So with those criteria in mind, let's get started. I started off by tackling the climate because, well, the sooner the better, and it also makes life up there a little bit better while I'm tackling everything else. First of all, I took up one of our IKEA air purifiers that I'd previously made smart to try and catch the bulk of the particles which might aggravate my lungs. And since I already had this standing fan up there, which we no longer used, I plugged it in through a smart plug and set it to run whenever the humidity is above a certain threshold to get the air moving around a bit. The next thing was to bring in some fresh air. I bought a pack of these lap vents on Amazon a while ago, and I think they've helped a bit, but you don't get enough of them in a pack. And since I've now got a 3D printer, I decided to look on MakerWorld to see if someone has made a printable version. And as luck would have it, somebody had. But despite being designed to be more printable, it still didn't come out great. So I designed my own, and I'll link it below. Now, after printing out a bunch more at less than half of the cost of buying them, I popped them into place. And I think they might actually work slightly better than the ones I previously bought, because I can now feel the breeze coming through. And there we go, it doesn't look much different yet, but with the climate now being managed, it's time to dive into the second task. So now we need to get things a bit more organised, and for this I've decided to do a few things. The most important thing was to get things boxed up so that they're protected and a bit more organised. But while having things in plastic boxes helps, it still ultimately results in stuff being piled on top of stuff, and just having to hunt through piles of boxes instead later on. So I came up with an idea for some shelves which make maximum use of the space and allow us to stack these boxes neatly to access any given box without having to move more than one out of the way to get at what you want. And they're scalable. This is the proof of concept unit, but from here I can go up and sideways with more units to add space for more boxes until everything has a place. And so with all of that done, we can finally get on to the last task, adding smarts and making sure we can find stuff easily. The first thing I went to do was to install some new LED light strips, but I realised that the ones that I'd thrown up a couple of years ago were actually still fine. They just needed to be mounted better. The only issue was that the classic cable tack nail clips kept snapping or working out of the wood. So once again, I designed my own. And I printed them in PETG to be as strong as possible, and screwed them into the wood for a better hold. And of course, like everything in my home, these lights are automated to come on when the loft hatch is opened, which is detected by this wired magnetic contact sensor running into a Shelly i4 DC. So now that we can see what's in the boxes, the last thing to do was to give us the ability to know what was in the boxes before we even open them up. And for this, I made use of a website that I knocked up many moons ago when my wife was storing her milk for our baby at the time. See, you can keep it for a certain amount of time in the fridge or freezer, but with so many bottles on the go at once, we were burning through labels, trying to keep track of how old each bottle was. So I decided to make a little website which generates you a QR code that you can then print and permanently affix to a bottle. Then when you scan the code, You get a page where you can then see when the bottle was filled and update that time without having to change the labels. And it turns out that this premise was also the perfect idea for labelling boxes for long-term storage after a couple of tweaks. All I had to do was add a note field and the option to make a code private, and I now have a system where I can store what's in a box and when it was last opened. Perfect. Well, almost. To make this process a little more slick, I also knocked up a couple of Siri shortcuts which I put on my phone's home screen. One to quickly scan codes and show the information without having to open a browser tab for each scan, and another which scans a code and allows you to modify the contents quickly, again without having to open up a browser window. Both of these shortcuts are available from my website, homeiswherethesmart.is. Simply scroll down to get my shortcuts and locate the shortcuts named Write Bottle Code and Read Bottle Code, making sure not to confuse them with other similar named ones. Once you've found them, hit the download button and then tap Setup Shortcut at the bottom. And at this point it will ask you for your bottle code password. And once you have them both, you can tap them to give them a test. And both of these shortcuts can store your code password so that you don't have to enter it each time. If you would like to make use of this site, feel free to give it a try. It's bottle.me.uk. And let me know what you end up using it for down in the comments. But that's it. With a bit of wood, a couple of smart plugs, a fan and some cheaply printed parts, my loft has gone from a mouldy mess to a somewhat habitable, organised library of our lives. This transformation has taken up the last few weeks of our life, but it has definitely been worth it. And it's hopefully going to help us declutter the whole of our home over the coming weeks now that there's more space and organisation up there. All that's left to say now is thank you as always for watching. If you liked this mashup of DIY, 3D printing and smart tech, be sure to hit that like button and follow me for more like it. And if you made it this far, let me know if you spotted it. And thanks again for watching, and as always, remember, home is where the smart is.